The wisdom of time. Sometimes the deepest tests don't arrive as storms, but as silence. When you did the right thing and still lost. When kindness was answered with cruelty. When no one defended you and heaven felt painfully quiet. In moments like these, injustice cuts deeper than pain and faith feels like a fragile thread about to break. Yet what if this unseen pressure isn't meant to crush you, but to reveal who you're becoming? What if this struggle is the sign that your heart is being prepared for something greater than you imagined? The man lived a life most people would never notice. His days followed a quiet rhythm of work, responsibility, and unspoken prayers whispered only in his heart. He was known as dependable, honest, the kind of person who showed up early and left late, not because anyone demanded it, but because something inside him believed faith was proven through consistency, not applause. Outwardly, his life looked ordinary, but inwardly it was shaped by restraint. He carried disappointments he never voiced, opportunities he had stepped away from because they required him to betray his conscience. While others learned how to win by bending the truth, he learned how to endure by holding on to it. He did not speak often about faith, yet his choices quietly reflected it, choosing patience over revenge, silence over bitterness, mercy over pride. Still, there were nights when doubt crept in. He wondered why integrity seemed so costly, why those who cut corners advanced faster, and why doing what felt right so often led to being overlooked. He never questioned God loudly, but the questions lingered in his chest like unanswered echoes. Was faith meant to be this lonely? Was goodness supposed to feel this heavy? Unseen by him, circumstances were beginning to shift. Small changes appeared, subtle tensions at work, unfamiliar distance from people he trusted, decisions being made without him in the room. Nothing dramatic yet, just enough to disturb the balance of his carefully lived life. It felt like the calm before something unnamed. And though he didn't realize it then, the ordinary life he clung to was about to place him at the center of a quiet injustice, one that would test not just what he believed, but who he truly was becoming. The change did not arrive all at once. It came quietly, disguised as routine. Tasks he once handled with trust were reassigned without explanation. Conversations lowered in tone when he entered the room. Decisions that affected his work were finalized elsewhere, leaving him informed but never included. At first, he told himself it was nothing, just a season, just misunderstanding. Faith had taught him not to assume the worst. But patterns have a way of revealing truths. Soon, responsibility remained while authority disappeared. When mistakes were made, his name floated closest to the surface. When success came, it passed him by without acknowledgement. The imbalance grew heavier each day, pressing against his chest like an unspoken accusation. He searched his actions carefully, replaying weeks and months, asking himself where he had failed. He found flaws, yes, but nothing that justified what was unfolding. What unsettled him most was the silence. No confrontation, no explanation, just a slow erosion of dignity. Fear followed quietly behind. Fear of losing stability, fear of being misunderstood forever, fear that staying silent might look like guilt. He felt the temptation to defend himself aggressively, to expose what he knew, to protect his name at any cost. The world around him seemed to reward those who spoke first and loudest, even if truth was sacrificed along the way. Yet something deeper restrained him. He remembered the kind of strength he had always admired, the strength that refused to answer injustice with cruelty. The kind of patience that endured without becoming hard. Still, admiration was easier than practice. Each day tested how long restraint could survive under pressure. Each night ended with exhaustion, not of the body, but of the soul. Then came the loss he had quietly feared. An opportunity he had worked toward for years slipped away, handed to someone less qualified, someone willing to compromise in ways he never could. The explanation given was vague, almost rehearsed. He nodded, thanked them, and walked away carrying a weight that felt far too heavy for one person to hold alone. Doubt tightened its grip. He wondered if faith had made him weak, if mercy had made him invisible, if choosing the narrow path meant accepting that fairness was a myth reserved for others. The questions did not scream, they whispered, which made them harder to silence. And yet something unexpected happened within him. Instead of bitterness taking root, sorrow softened him. He noticed suffering in others he had once overlooked. He felt compassion instead of resentment. Where anger should have grown, empathy appeared, fragile but real. It confused him almost as much as the injustice itself. Still, the pressure continued to rise. A final decision loomed, one that would determine whether he would protect himself by abandoning everything he believed or risk losing more by staying faithful to it. The ground beneath his certainty began to crack. Unaware of what waited just ahead, he stood at the edge of a moment that would reveal whether this trial was punishment or preparation. The breaking point arrived without warning, stripped of ceremony and fairness. A decision was made publicly, his integrity quietly questioned, his silence interpreted as weakness. What had been whispered before now stood exposed, and the injustice he had carried alone pressed down with full weight. Every instinct urged him to protect himself, to reveal everything he knew, to let truth fall like a weapon and finally clear his name. The pressure was unbearable. Reputation, livelihood, and years of quiet faith stood on the edge of collapse. He felt anger surge, sharp and justified, offering relief if only he would let it take control. For a moment, retaliation felt righteous. Silence suddenly felt like surrender. But beneath the noise, something steadier surfaced. He recognized the familiar crossroads, the choice between winning and becoming, between proving himself right and remaining faithful to who he was. The cost of mercy stood plainly before him: real loss, real misunderstanding, real pain. Forgiveness would not erase the injustice, truth spoken gently might not be believed, and endurance promised no immediate reward. Still, he chose restraint. Not because the injustice deserved it, but because his heart did. He released the need to be vindicated in that moment. He refused to let cruelty decide who he would become. In doing so, something unexpected happened. Peace did not arrive gently, but firmly, like a foundation settling beneath shaking ground. The outcome did not reverse instantly. Nothing dramatic changed around him, yet something irreversible shifted within him. The fear that once controlled him lost its grip. The weight he carried no longer owned him. What had been meant to break his spirit had refined it instead. Others did not see the transformation immediately, but the trial had completed its work. What remained was a strength shaped by mercy, a faith no longer dependent on fairness, and a heart aligned with something higher than recognition. And in that quiet victory, unseen but undeniable, the test revealed its purpose. This was not the end of his struggle, but the beginning of who he was truly ready to become. What followed was not applause or instant justice, but clarity. Life slowly returned to motion, though it no longer looked the same. Some doors remained closed, some misunderstandings were never corrected, yet inside him something settled into place. The struggle that once defined him no longer controlled him. He carried the quiet assurance of someone who had passed through fire without becoming hardened by it. He noticed the change in small ways. He listened more deeply. He reacted less defensively. Where bitterness once waited for an excuse to rise, compassion now answered first. The trial had stripped away his need for validation and replaced it with something steadier, a sense of purpose untouched by circumstance. He no longer measured his worth by outcomes, but by faithfulness. The injustice had not been meaningless. It had revealed what comfort never could. It taught him that strength is not proven by how loudly one demands fairness, but by how gently one holds onto integrity when fairness disappears. Mercy, he learned, is not weakness. It is courage refined through pain. Forgiveness is not forgetting, it is freedom. In a world that often rewards shortcuts and celebrates loud victories, his story echoes quietly among countless others. People who endure unseen struggles, who choose patience when anger would be easier, who carry faith not as a shield from pain, but as a compass through it. These are the tests that shape character long before they change circumstances. Perhaps that is why such trials feel so personal. They are not meant to destroy, but to prepare. Not to shame, but to reveal. Not to take something from you, but to uncover what was already growing within you. If you're walking through a season where doing right feels costly, where silence feels heavy, and where injustice seems unanswered, maybe this is not abandonment. Maybe this is refinement. Maybe this is the quiet work of becoming ready. And the question remains, lingering with gentle power. When fairness is absent and no one is watching, who are you becoming? And are you willing to trust that this test is shaping you for something greater?